PlayStation believes in great games.
PlayStation.
Hello and good day to you, my beautiful friends. I do hope you are well. Welcome to episode 19 of crossbuttonvr, a beginner's journey into PS VR2, a show for those who want to share in our newcomers' enthusiasm for the world of VR. Now, I'm your host, Laurie, but if you are lucky enough to have recently discovered this podcast, I just want to remind you, or let you know for the first time even, that we are part of the Crossplayers. So if you find yourself liking what you hear, do check out thecrossplayers.com for links to all of our other content and our Discord. Now, it is an honour to be joined once again by two of the most bodacious influencers in the metaverse. It's Alex and Ben. Hi there, gents.
Hi.
Hey.
No complaints this week. No complaints this week.
No,
Yeah,
bodacious. That's a throwback. I like
I'd say, yeah, who's Donatello here? Who's Michelangelo? Which one? If you had to be a turtle, guys, what would you be?
I would definitely be Michelangelo.
Yeah,
No question. Yeah.
I'm
I'm a party dude.
yeah. That's what I think. Every time I see him, I say he's such a party dude.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not the Leonardo, so I'll probably be the Raphael, maybe.
He's the grumpy one, yeah.
He's a bit surly and grumpy.
Yeah.
He is the most Scottish of all of them.
Well, if the cat fits, I guess, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say I'd be Leonardo, but I'd blatantly be Donatello. So looks like we still need our dear leader. Who could that be? If only someone else we knew might buy a VR headset to join our Motley crew. Never will. Good. Well, what's on the agenda today then? Anyone? Any ideas?
No
Kept
idea.
in the dark this week.
No. Well, we've got a bit of news to discuss. And then this week is all about Synapse. It's the game that everyone's talking about. It's the big PSVR 2 exclusive. And what an exclusive it is. So we're going to be talking about that. We've got a review impressions of that game. Plus, we've got an interview with nDreams, the developer's community manager, Jimmy Bowers, coming up as well. So you can look forward to that if you keep listening to the very end of the podcast. Nobody switch off early. I was told off a lot for doing that saying you could last week, which you absolutely must not do. Stay to the very end of the episode. Good.
Damn right.
Yeah. Okay, so the first bit of news this week is, I think it's not strictly speaking a PSVR 2 bit of news, but I think it is very relevant to PSVR 2, and that MetaQuest have launched MetaQuest Plus, which is their new subscription service way of getting access to their games, and it's basically PS Plus, right? It works. PS Plus is £8 a month or £60 per year, which is obviously the option you'd go for. It makes it much cheaper. And it's 2 free games every month. And like PS Plus, you can access them, you claim them in that month you're subscribing, and then you can keep them forever. You can play them all the while you're subscribed. If your subscription lapses, you lose access to it, but you can always resub later and regain access to it. So I believe it's just like how PS Plus works, the PS Plus basic tier. Is that what it's called? PS Plus basic now? I don't know. Yeah, the traditional PS Plus before
Essential.
the
Is it essential?
Essential. Yeah,
Yeah.
essential.
I
That's
don't think
better
they'd call
than
it basic,
isn't it? They
would
wouldn't
they?
call it basic.
It's
It's not a
basic.
basic thing for me to say.
It's
So
a shit one.
July,
Yeah.
the first, it's going to be launching with 2 games, Pistol Whip and Pixel Ripped, which sound weirdly similar. Pistol
1995.
Whip and Pixel Whip 1995, thank you. So obviously Pistol Whip is a game that I know at the very least Ben highly rates.
Big fan.
Big fan. And then they've already announced August's month. They're just being a bit rogue and going in for August as well. And Walkabout Mini Golf, whoop, whoop, which is a game we all love.
Odd.
And Mother Gunship Forge, which I have never heard of, but
Me neither.
probably a good game. And I think if you join before it starts officially, you get it the first month for £1, which is a bit of a rubbish deal because you think you should get the first month for £1 anyway. Come on. So what do you think?
Sony's missed a trick.
Yeah.
Like they had the infrastructure there. They had everything set up to go. Like, why not? Here comes PSVR 2, and here on PS Plus Essential every month you get a VR2 game. Why not?
It's annoying me a little bit now that they're not doing it because it's like they're treating PSVR people. It's almost like second class owners of the or members of the ecosystem, because you pay your PS Plus to be able to play games like Walkabout and See Smash Online with people, so you need it for that. But like, there's so many VR games now. There's a huge library for it. There's so many, and they can put one or two out, add one or two per month. Just they can just be the smaller titles. I don't know why they're not doing it. Give some more value for PSVR owners in the PS Plus subscription, even if you put it as part of the premium tier and you said that it's just for premium because really we recognise that VR is for our most engaged audience, so we've made it another perk on premium, and you know they need more perks on that to make it stand out from extra. So it's just frustrating why they're not doing it.
Didn't they? They did do that with the original PSVR, didn't they? I'm pretty sure. Certainly in the last several months, there was always a VR title mixed in.
They gave a few of them away at
others.
points, yeah. They definitely did.
Yeah.
There was like a little, like, they used to go through like phases of giving like so many VR games away at a time. So they have done it. And I think even when you go back, see if you historically go back to PS Plus, like when the Vita came out, you used to get a PS4 game, a PS3 game, and a Vita game every month. Like, so they've done it there. Then when the PS5 came out, you came out with the PS Plus collection going straight on there for PS5. It just feels, and as you say, Laurie, it's like they're almost kind of treating the VR2 owners as the kind of second class citizens, yet they're the ones that are paying the biggest premium.
Yeah,
in
they
the
are the
hardware
most
that they sell.
invested.
Yeah.
Actually, the most invested people in the ecosystem. So yeah, what I don't even know what they're doing.
Not that
I
much
think it's
better.
now that they're doing Quest has done it first. It's kind of like, oh, now they're just copying Quest, which
Well, I mean, you
don't
could
really
say
care about, but
they won't care, will they? You could say, oh, they're copying Xbox Game Pass. You know, who gives a shit as long as they're giving the customers value. I think they'll do something like this eventually, or we will see one VR title a month like we did with PSVR 1. I think it's inevitable, but at the same time, you know how Sony like their big first party exclusives, they don't want to do them day and date to a subscription service. I think it's the same with PSVR 2. They want it out there first, premium, pay full price, get the early adopters in, and then maybe when things slow down or something else, or they want to get an extra boost, then that's when they start giving us a little bit more. But for now, I think we're okay. I do think it's a smart move from Quest, though. I think because so many of these VR experiences, certainly in our experience, they lend themselves quite nicely to that sort of Game Pass model of, I'll just try a bit of that, I'll just try a bit of that, like you do with Game Pass, and you try everything, and you know some of it might be for you, some of it won't be. So I think that subscription model is a really good fit for VR. So yeah, hopefully Sony follow suit sooner rather than later.
I am surprised that it's just 2 games a month, and they've got this huge library on Quest now. There's so much content on there. A lot of it is not very good, but there's a lot of good stuff there now. You think they could have had that £60 for 2 games a month, which is nice for sort of casual people. Couple of games a month, a sort of decent cadence of releases. You play one every couple of weeks. That's kind of good, but they could have had something that was a bit more Game Passy or a bit more PS Plusy, that you could unlock, say, 10 games or 20 games, like a little collection as well to go with it, just to give people picking up Quest, here's a really great overview and representation of the whole library, which you can have on day one. Because obviously anyone picking up a Quest in future, they can start some to this, but they'll have missed Pistol Whip and that. They're only going to get whatever the games are in that month and from then on. So it just would have been make sense to me to have a little collection of stuff.
So there won't be sort of retrospectively, they won't have access to the stuff from the past.
No.
So it's
Right,
almost it's like the PS Plus stuff used to be then, where they'd go, these are this month's games, now they're gone. Or games
I feel
with
like I
gold.
explained that pretty well, Ben.
No, you probably did. It just didn't. It's not actually as good as I thought it was. No, Sony's got nothing to worry about.
Yeah, I don't think they do have anything to worry about for this in particular. It just strikes me as that it would be better to say, pay a bit, and here's an overview of sort of the best of the library, or something from every genre, so something from everyone. It would have been nice for people, but there you go.
Odd.
But yeah, I just thought it was interesting and worth talking about that now their VR competitor has entered the subscription market as well. I don't know how popular it's going to be, because people have got other subscriptions as well, and we're already seeing the subscription market plateauing. I think there's a limit on the Game Pass, and PS Plus subscribers are kind of hitting their natural limit. It's like, this is the number of people at the moment that are interested in streaming games. So we'll see what that does and how popular that proves to be for Meta Quest Plus, although I doubt they'll ever share those numbers, but we'll see. Hopefully, though, it does encourage Sony to start putting some things on PS Plus.
Hopefully.
Okay, the next little bit of news we've had this week is Sea Smash obviously is released. It's been a big deal. We have got an interview coming up next week with Ryan Boosfield from Wolf and Wood, the developers. But in the meantime, we've learned this week about the roadmap for the updates to the games that's coming out. So they are going to be adding a co-op mode, which, Alex, I think you and I are going to have to try out as soon as it's ready. An infinity mode, which I think I've seen them describe as like a fitness mode, where it just kind of goes on forever. It just gets progressively harder, and it's more kind of intense fitness style mode for it.
You and I will have to try that, Alex. That one.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then there's also a music player, which I guess maybe Ben, you and I can do that, just so we've all had a turn.
No, I don't want to.
Music player as well, which, because obviously the music's pretty cool, so people can just play the music. Easy. So that's good. And I know you said, Alex, that they needed to lay out a roadmap because the package there at launch is, I think it's pretty good for the cost of it. It's pretty low cost game. There's a good campaign. There's a good multiplayer aspect with a few different modes on it. But it's good that they are going to keep adding more. And it's going to keep growing over time. So
be interested to see if they add in a single player versus AI mode.
Yeah.
Because I think that's maybe the one thing I was a bit surprised at when I first played it. It was like, oh, this kind of feels a bit like a tutorial. That when you're just batting stuff against the walls and things like that. So I did wonder if maybe they do eventually get around to that. I guess we'll find out in the future. But it's good that they are supporting it and adding stuff to it.
Because I think I mentioned when we did the review that I thought the co-op was there at launch. I didn't appreciate that was coming post-launch, because I think the description of the game has co-op in the description. Hopefully it's not going to be too far down the line. But I think the co-op will be fun, because I think even playing against each other, is we were kind of mentioning, like, just seeing each other within the game. I think the co-op would be quite interesting in terms of how that mechanic would work. And I'd quite like them to add, like, if they're putting in that music player or something, like, you could have like a little dance mode or something with it, a little dance mini game. Like, just make some nice little videos of you dancing along to the music and stuff.
Just turn
like
it into Just Dance.
Yeah.
I want them to do like a lore mode and just add an explanation as to who those dudes are dancing outside or just on trampolines outside the window. Like, why are they all doing it? Like, what I want to know. It's just, this is the kind of the lover of stories and games in me. Just wants to know, like, why are they on this spaceship? Who are these people? What are they doing out here? And why are they all just taking the day off to play space tennis and lark about outside the window?
They're not.
Yeah, they're not.
Why not?
Why not, exactly. Cool. Is there any other news that either of you two eagle-eyed people have spotted? I feel like this is good because we needed a quiet week after the insane couple of weeks that we've had, so it's not surprising that we've been a bit of a quieter time for announcements, because obviously everyone was rushing them all out for the other week.
I mean, for all it's been a quiet week, I feel like Sony are suddenly starting to crank up the notch a little bit, though, on advertising and marketing, and starting to see, like, every few days there's been a little bit more, or like they've really pushed the Sea Smash. They put another, like, compilation video pushing out again today on, like, VR, and I feel like they're starting to crank things up a wee bit and actually pay attention to it, which is good to see.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing it advertised more in other retailers as well now. But yeah, cool. Well, before we get into our big Synapse interview, I'd just like to remind everyone, if they would like to support us, they can give this podcast a sub on the service they're using. And please do leave us a review too. And you can follow us on Twitter at crossbuttonvr and at the crossplayers. And if you would really like to support us in the best way possible, you can do so via patreon.com/thecrossplayers. And for £2 a month, you can help us produce the show and gain entry into our WhatsApp group. Now, we ran a competition last week. Ben, if you wouldn't mind announcing who the winner of this competition was, this week's winner of the £10 PSN credit.
Absolutely, Laurie, would be my pleasure. Very simple contest last week. We just asked you to post a GIF in the PSVR2 channel of our Discord. And actually, the person that has been selected as the winner is a long-time friend of the crossplayers and a Patreon, and that is Eamon. So congratulations, Eamon. Thank you for your... I think he posted the Dave Chappelle crackhead gif, which is a personal. Personal favourite of mine. What are your favourite GIFs, Laurie? You're a social media whore. What's your go-to GIF?
I don't know. I should have to keep talking.
I like
I'll have a look on
while you're having a think, I think the Alan Partridge shrug one is probably my favourite.
I like the baby, the little baby running in the room and going and running back.
And then
out.
just runs out again. Yeah, that's a classic one. Also, big fan of Tommen from Game of Thrones, just walking up to the window and then just throwing himself out the
That's a
window.
good one.
I use that one quite a lot. Big fan of that GIF. Laurie, anything?
No, I got nothing for you.
No. He lets his words do the talking. Doesn't need to use cheap tricks. Speaking of letting your words do the talking, our final competition for this week involves you sending us some words under the video here, posting your favourite PSVR2 games so far. Let us know what would be your go-to suggestions for what game you think people should be picking up. If you could suggest, it could be 1, it could be 5, it could be 10, however many you like. Because what we're going to be doing in a future episode coming up very soon is collating, as we did before several episodes ago, collating what we think are the 5 or 10, if we can keep it to that, must-have PSVR2 games. So it'd be great to have some feedback from everyone else. So post your favourites in the comment section of YouTube under this video, and let us know what you think. And obviously some of them we will read out on that very episode.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone else says, because I can definitely think of five, just trying to limit to 5, I would find very much a struggle now. I could definitely recommend 10 solid games, and I'd love to know what everyone else thinks as well. So cool. Well, next up, we are going to be doing our review on this week's big game. It's going to be Synapse. Synapse then, guys. You've both played it. What do you think?
Very good. Very good.
It is, lovely. It's cool. It's a cool game. But I feel like, Laurie, you should probably take the lead on this, because you're our lead reviewer for Synapse. So
for Synapse, okay. Well, I will just put my cards on the table then and say I really, really love it, and I think it may be my favourite PSVR2 game so far.
Big words.
Yeah, I feel like I need to finish it. I need to keep playing it and finish it before I can say for sure. But it feels to me like this is the first big killer app exclusive game that they've been waiting for. I really can't wait to see how well it lands and what other people think of it. But for me, it has a moment earlier in the game. You do a few runs and you unlock certain things in the skill tree, and early on you unlock something which is one of those real moments in video games, one of those aha moments, things that you'll remember doing for the rest of your time you play video games. And it's just, you feel so diabolically powerful, and you just let out a laugh, just that an evil laugh that I just let out involuntarily. It's just like where enemies were kept getting you, or they were you unlock something that just absolutely transforms that power dynamic, and you're like the hunter becomes the hunted, and it's just, you just feel so powerful, and it's so good, and it's so much fun. It's such a fun mechanic, and it doesn't happen very often where you just have you can sort of reach out your hand. You feel like you're in the Matrix or something. You know, when like in the Matrix when Neo gets his powers at the end of it, and then he's just like, hold on a minute, I don't need to be scared of these agents anymore, and he can just turn bullets right around and fire them at them. It's like that, where you can just pick up an enemy,
oh my god,
and just launch them off a cliff, and they go flying, and they're like, and they will react so pleasingly to that as well. They were like, what is this devilry? Or like, oh my god, what's he doing? It's like, quick, help me. It's just the reactions are so, you're like, haha, yeah, you better run. It's great. I just love that so much. And for that alone, I just couldn't stop playing it, just because it never got bored. But even before that point, just to rewind a bit, so the game starts off as a very brief intro. You are just on an island. Straight away you realise, like, God, this is a good-looking game.
Yeah.
It's a very, very, really sharp, clean, good-looking game. Black and white with little colourful touches here and there. and you start off. The premise of it is that you are an agent working for some intelligence agency, and another member of the agency has gone rogue and is plotting a terrorist attack, and he's been captured by the agency, and he's got all the details in his head of what this terrorist attack's going to be. So you need to infiltrate his mind to break through and get his secrets. Now, this guy being some ex-colonel, war military solid snake type character, when you enter his mind, it's manifested as a battlefield, and you're having to break through all these waves of enemies that are increasingly tough. And as you get through the barriers of his psyche, you encounter harder and harder enemies. And when you're in this space, you're in his mind. He's taunting you. Your handler is patches in as well, can talk to you. And these two are played by David Hayter and Jennifer Hale, played brilliantly well. There's a real good dynamic, and when the colonel hears your handler for the first time and realizes who it is, it's like, oh no, it's you. And you can tell they've got history, which you're all kind of just all oblivious to start off with, and so you realize there's this deeper story and this deeper history, and all is not quite what it seems, because you'll start off and it's like the colonel, he's the baddie, but then I don't know. I obviously haven't had all the story yet because it doles it out over each multiple runs, but you get the sense straight away that maybe all is not what it seems here, or maybe the colonel isn't. It's not quite as black and white. Ironically, game being black and white, it's not all as black and white as it initially seems. I don't know for sure. This can't be a spoiler because I don't know, but just I get the sense that actually there's going to be more to this. It's going to be deeper. So the story of it is really great. I think anyone that played and is a fan of Metal Gear Solid and that kind of ethos of you're a soldier on the battlefield, and it very much captures that whole themes and the ideas, and with the same voice cast. And when you hear him taunting you he sounds, it's just like you've got some sort of mad version of Solid Snake on the talking to you over the radio. It's great. It's a real, I think for PlayStation, long-time PlayStation fans that have got that history with PlayStation and Metal Gear Solid 1, I think it's great playing this now on the hardware, and that for me really resonated. Cool. And that whole kind of Inception element to it, it's just such a cool idea for a video game where you are entering someone's mind, and then in that dreamscape, basically, you just have these powers and things can just behave differently to what they do in the real world. It's such a clever concept for a game, and I'm surprised we haven't seen it more.
The power, just touching on that for a second, so that power that you mentioned, that kind of, you said that's the big aha moment that kind of opens the game up to you. How long did it take you to unlock that? How many sort of runs in was it before you?
Well, it's pretty. The game, and this is one of the things I like about it as well, is there's 2 skill trees, and you earn skill points by doing cool shit in the game, basically. So and that it explains it as there's a gameplay reason for it. It's like the more aligned you are with the Colonel, the more badass you are in battle, like the Colonel was or is, the more access to his mind and the more control you have over it. So it's a really great idea. So the more stunts you pull off, the more sort of cool things, if you can catch an enemy grenade and throw it back at them, that gets you points, and so it accumulates. And if you pause the game, you can see all the things you're building points towards, and sometimes you pop things that you don't even realise you're building points towards as well. So it starts off simple, just kill 30 enemies, which you'll do over 2 or 3 runs, and I think it's quite generous in that it'll give you, if you do that, it gives you 1 or 2, or I think there's some of them that gives you up to 6 skill points. So it can be quite generous for the more kind of harder to achieve stuff. So it's almost like an achievement system in the game, and it does pop a trophy every time you get one as well. Alex, you'll be pleased to hear lots of trophies popping all the time. But
I think it was Ben's ears that picked up more than mine now, to be fair.
Okay. So you get these points, and then you can spend them in the skill tree. So to some extent, it depends on how well you're playing it, but you can just grind it out. If you're really rubbish at the game, you can start a game, and I'm sure you can kill 5 or 10 people before they manage to kill you. It's not that hard. I mean, if you can't do that, then you're probably not the game for you, to be honest. You can learn. You can grab onto cover and you can duck down it. So you just need to stay under cover and just pop up. You can hear when the enemies are kind of reloading or take a break and shooting, so you can pop up and shoot them. So if you do that and complete the first couple of levels 2 or 3 times, you will unlock some stuff, and that will give you some points to put into the skill tree. And on the skill tree, you've got 3 categories. You've got one around, I don't know the names of them, but the one's around the weapons, and you can unlock different and more powerful weapons and dual wielding weapons, and the ability to carry 2 weapons and swap them around. So there's one dedicated to weapons. There's one dedicated to opening up, getting more health and having health fountains in the game. That's the thing. The very first tier unlocks weapon terminals in the levels, so you can change your weapon whilst you're in the game. Then there's a health one that you can top up your health throughout the runs, and they're all pretty essential. The first runs of them are all. The first level of each of the skill trees are
you need
are
the
fairly
basics.
Important. Yeah, you need all of them at least, because without the health fountains, it's really hard. But yeah, they work out, and you can see everything at the start, so you don't need to unlock it to then see what's in the next one. You can see right away, so you can plot your journeys if you want. So you can see, okay, there's an extra life, and then there's a double extra life, and then there's an extra life with more health when you restart, when you respawn. So you think, okay, I might target that, or I might target this one. For me, I targeted the telekinesis powers, because that for me was I prefer playing like that than the shooting side of it. That was more fun to me. So I was like, right, I'm not too bothered about the guns yet. I just want to focus on getting the cool telekinesis powers, because that's the more fun stuff for me.
And they are permanent unlocks, those ones, right?
Yeah, once you unlock those, they are then permanent. You do collect throughout your runs. At the end of each level, you get a choice of upgrades, and it could be like something that at the end of every magazine, you get a grenade. So your gun turns into a grenade launcher. Or it could be that occasionally the enemies will explode on death. Or it'd just be something, that some modifier that changes.
Little perk and for that run specifically.
Yeah, and they add up. So if you do, I think there's 8 or 9 stages you have to do to complete a full run, and so by the end of it, you'll have these 8 perks that just all build on each other and stuff and get more and more complex. So by the end of each run, there's quite a broad selection of random modifiers. So by the end of the run, you'll have 8 of these applied, and you'll get quite powerful. And they all get lost at the end of the run. You also can you get currency, basically, these petals off leaves, and when people die, they drop them as well. So you collect these things, and then you can spend them to. You can reload. You can spend them all on like reloading on your ammo, or topping up your health, or some other bits and other things you can do with it and stuff. So, and they get lost on death as well. So the only thing that carries over on death is any kind of the skill points you unlocked for doing your cool shit, basically. But in the runs that I've done, every run that I've done, I've always unlocked. I had like one mega run that I unlocked about 10 different things in one run. So there's pretty general. If you can put a good run together, you can unlock quite a lot of stuff each run. So then when you then go back to the restart point where the hubs are and the skill trees are, you get quite a lot to spend. They're not too stingy with the points, and I find like they've got the balance for me just right, and that you can unlock quite a lot of stuff to make your next run quite different or quite extra powered. And that for me, when I'm playing a roguelike, that's really important to me. I want to have that progression between runs, and even if you just do a run and you kill 5 people and then you die, you've still contributed, because it will start off, I think it's kill 30 people, the most basic enemies is the first thing, and then that then becomes kill 100 of those, and then 300 of those. So you will just do that just naturally without even trying eventually. So there is always some progression. There is never a completely wasted run. As long as you kill, I don't know, one person, I guess you've achieved something towards that greater objective, which will give you a skill point, which will allow you to unlock pretty significant permanent buffs that change the game. And you start to unlock shotguns and grenade launchers, and get all these telekinesis powers and the ability to throw enemies and lob back their grenades and stuff. So you become significantly more powerful as the game goes on. Now, of course,
you get to a point where you feel too powerful, though? Because the telekinesis ability that you just described, that sounds like, well, basically just kill everything that's in front of you without worrying. Does it get to that point?
It does make because when you die, it's like, oh god, I got really far, I'm going to have to get back to that point again. But because you've got more powers now, the second time you go through the early levels, become an absolute breeze, and then it's fun, because it's like you can just mow down enemies, you can just shoot them with your submachine gun or throw them off cliffs, and so it's just fun, just because they just become like your playthings, and that's just fun to do. And you're kind of grinding through those levels, but they're just fun to do. And the game does mix it up though. So it does remix the levels. You're playing through the same levels, the same settings, the same sort of structural levels. So it doesn't remix the levels, but it does remix where you spawn into the level when you start it, and then where all the enemies spawn and come from. And also I've played levels where it completely changes the type of enemy, and I won't spoil it but there is other different types of enemies than the starting point, and you expect it to be quite just full of the easy level 1 enemies, and it might just mix it up unexpectedly, and the entire level is all these much harder levels, enemies that are much harder to deal with, that just totally catches you out. So it just does keep you on your toes. But then the reward for killing those is higher. So you think, okay, if I'm going to have to grind for these levels, at least now I'm getting more of a reward for doing it. And if it changes the enemies in it, it really does change how you go through the levels, because the enemies that it throws at you do mix things up a bit and do change how you have to approach the levels and different scenarios and stuff.
And I suppose that's where the other kind of main game kind of mechanic in aim comes from as well, because you've got your ranking for each level. So obviously, kind of where I've been sitting, I've always kind of ended up like at C or something, because I'm not getting through these levels fast, but I'm getting through them. But I'm probably being a bit more kind of. Usually I'm very, very gung-ho, but for some reason when I'm playing this, I take my time and I'm like plotting out because I don't want to die. I'm just trying to make sure I'm taking everyone out, so do it quite slowly and not getting the great ranking for each level, which then increases the rewards you're getting per level. So as you're kind of overpowering, that should make it easier to actually up that rank and kind of get whether your S ranks or your A ranks.
Yeah, it becomes more like a speed run to just get that S rank and just get through things as quick as possible. And it does become, a level that might take you 10 minutes the first time around. You can clear it in a minute or two once you've got some extra powers under your belt. And so I've never had a roguelike game where the runs evolve so dramatically. I think of things like Hades. They do have permanent upgrades, but it takes a lot of time you have to put into it before you start to get stuff. Whereas this is much more immediate, which kind of works with that VR setting where you don't want to put 100 hours into it, or you're not going to be spending that long on it because it's just the nature of the medium. I think I've heard nDreams say that it takes their playtesters it's taken them about 10 hours to complete 3 full runs, and to see the full game, you complete the game, you complete a full run, and you get the first bit of story. Then you have to complete the second run on medium difficulty, and then a third run on hard difficulty. So it gets progressively harder, and each time you complete it, it will dole out more. You'll see more of the story until you get a full picture after 3 runs. Now, I've not managed to finish 3 full runs, so I can't speak. I don't want to comment on the story and how well it nails the landing, which obviously is going to be a key part of it. So, full disclaimer there, I can't speak to as someone who's just finished the game. But I will say, from what I've played, the several hours I played to start off with, I'm really, really enjoying it. I think the gun mechanics, the shooting mechanics are the best I've played in VR. I find it so much easier to pick out a target as far away and hit the target with this in ways that I always really struggle with other shooting games, like I can't think of the name of it now. What's that World War II gun shooting one? The Light Brigade? Yeah, the Light Brigade. That I've got awful with that. It's a similar kind of feel to this, but this in Synapse, it's just, I find it much more satisfying to shoot things.
I think it's good, and is it in the pistol? Like I thought when I got the machine gun, I'm like, I'm going to much prefer this, but then I found myself going back to the pistol because it had the laser sight. Whereas the machine gun, I struggled with the machine gun more because it was just like, it was probably quite realistic in terms of it was kind of giving you that whole like kind of feedback and moving as you were firing it. Whereas at least for that, I found myself much preferring the pistol, just from that whole aim perspective. Yeah,
I'm all about the machine gun. I love that. I'll send you. I can share some of my videos of me playing it, my gameplay videos. It's just with the pistol, just running around. It's great. And that's when you get good at it, and you can just run around at speed, and just the combination of one hand picking people up and throwing them, and the other hand shooting someone else at the same time. You feel so cool. In terms of our kind of scales about it, the vomit factor, I've not had any. I'm probably waste time asking me now because nothing seems to make me feel sick. But I think
he's immune.
Ben, I'm guessing you may do playing this. I don't know. Does it make you feel any reaction in the time you have played it?
I've managed about half an hour at a time before starting to feel the first pangs of queasiness.
Yeah. Okay. You see, because the run can take over an hour to do each run, so I can see that might be.
I suppose it's actually a good point to mention, actually, that you can save mid-run. So like it'll take you to the start of each. You don't need to do a full run like in one sitting. It will take you to the start of each level that you get to. You've got a save point at basically each portal. So it's there are save points here, so you're not having to do it all in one long run. You can kind of just progress at a level at a time if that's how you want to play it, or you can take breaks and split it up a bit, which is good.
And
we
the
had
comfort settings, they are decent. I think you can adjust the vignette intensity, the snap turning, so it's they're taking that stuff into consideration. It's pretty good on that front.
In terms of the grumpy old man scale as well, we had a question on our Discord about room scale versus standing and sitting. I don't think this is a game that would work very well for sitting. I think the way I play it, I'm constantly looking around and people are spawning in behind you, so they're constantly having to look around. The 3D audio, I should add, is great on this, being able to hear where people are and coming at you, because they're very vertical levels. They're very kind of maze-like. Really reminded me of like a GoldenEye deathmatch level. some of the structures you're trying to clear enemies in. But
you've just reminded me. Sorry. So if you do hear someone spawning behind you, what do you do? Like instinctively, do you like turn around, like physically turn around, or do you like snap turn around?
Well, in this, because speed is of the essence, I will turn around. I'll try and keep my feet planted, and I'll twist my body around and shoot them. Probably doing my back no favours, but
good to know. That's what I would do as well. But all I was going to say is I think that's one of the other accessibility settings, though, that you can change it so the turning can be done with the controller rather with the headset. So I think if you were wanting to sit and play, then that's probably the setting you were going, so you weren't trying to twist. So I do think you could play it seated. I think it's just as you say, Laurie, for your play style, you probably would never choose to, but I don't think there would be any issue if you want to play it seated. You could. It would be more than playable in a seated position. It just people.
Do you not think the speed of? I suppose if you could just snap and turn around.
Not if you change the setting, no, because I think
fair point. But yeah, in terms of the room scale, I can't see you need it because you have to move around so much, move around with the sticks. Room scale. You can move around your room and duck down behind things, but I think you'd be smashing up your room really quickly if you were doing that. I feel like I need to stay planted on the spot because there's been a few times I've had to hit the pass through mode to sort of see where I am, because I have moved around in my room without meaning to. So if you were playing it where you think you had the freedom to move around within 2 meters, I mean that's the arenas are much much bigger than that, so it was not enough room. So I think you'd end up just keep hitting the edges of your space all the time, and you'd sort of break the immersion. But try it, I suppose. For me, it's a standing game. It seems to be the best in. But in terms of the grumpy old man, it's not. It's quite an intense game. You're going to want to. I don't know. It's not a sort of sit down on your sofa, sit back and put your feet up kind of thing. It's more of a engaged game. In terms of our wow factor, for me, it's got the wow factor just for that telekinesis. The eye tracking is amazing. There's that lovely video of you, Ben, where you played it and you just looked at the crates and you picked those up and flick those with your hand. It is a real VR wow moment, I think, for me.
I think it's one of my most wow moments in VR so far. Just doing that. So definitely strong.
I think particularly when you get better at it, I think the more you start to be able to land them on top of them and stuff like that, and then you feel like that's skill. Like
when you get it and you slam it down on someone. Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, slightly sadistic and makes me sound quite insane there. I appreciate it, but there you go. That's what it is. And in terms of is it a decent game, for me, I think this is the most polished kind of AAA style game. It's kind of up there for me with GTA in terms of the kind of level of sort of fidelity and the voice acting and the mechanics of it. I think it's a really, really strong game in its own right, and obviously being in VR it gives you the power to do things like that telekinesis that I've talked about a lot. I think it's not just a gimmick. I think it is a really good game. I think they've got the skill tree, the unlocks, the way that the runs evolve over time to stay interesting. I think they've nailed those roguelike mechanics.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think this is a game that really shines and is finally something that really shows off power of the headset, like all of the different bits of the headset, like it pulls it all together. You can tell it's been built from the ground up for VR2. Certainly, I'm saying you can tell, we wouldn't know because we're just assuming like we've not got any experience of anything else, but it certainly feels like it's utilising every bit of it.
Yeah, the haptics are great. The load times are non-existent. Yeah, for me, it's a really strong entry into the PSVR2's lineup, and I hope it does very well. Cool. Well, Thanks again, everyone, for listening. If you have enjoyed this episode, please tell your friends and family all about us. And if you fancy getting a bit more involved in the rest of our stuff that we do, please do drop into our Discord and say hello. And thank you once again to everyone else that has done so. And of course, thank you once again to all of our patrons for supporting the work we do. Now, we have got, before we go, we can treat you all to an interview with the community manager for nDreams, the developer of Synapse, Jimmy Bowers, who's taking some time out to talk to us now. So we'll play into that now. But before I do, I'll just say goodbye. I've been your host, Laurie. These two have been Ben and Alex, and we will see you again next time. Thank you. Yeah, so actually, Jimmy, our first question is from Lewis on our team. Just asking, how do you pronounce the game's title? I won't influence anything. How do you pronounce it?
So, I say Synapse, but I don't think I'm supposed to. So obviously, Synapse is British English. Synapse is American English. But because the bulk of our audience is in the US, the official brand pronunciation is Synapse, but I just can't get my head around it.
See, I say Synapse, but I think maybe that's just because I've been playing the game and they say it in the game.
Yeah.
I've said Synapse all my life up until we started talking about this game, and you two both said Synapse, and I was like, oh, maybe I've been saying it wrong this whole time. But now,
No,
I mean,
it's just a British American English difference.
Yeah.
Well, now
Let's
we
go
know.
to Synapse.
Yeah, switch over.
Stay.
If
Yeah.
Laurie says
No, but
Synapse,
Synapse
once
is just like
in
this
this
is sort of-
interview,
No, Synapse, that's just like signing apps that you use on your phone to help you sign language, you know.
well, Synapse are the ones that help you sin.
Maybe. So, Jimmy, you must be very chuffed. You and all the team must be very chuffed at how the game's landed, the reception you've been getting.
Yeah, it's kind of blown us away, really. Been very well
bet.
received so far with people that have obviously previewed it and reviewed it early. It was important for us to have a review embargo that was pre-launch, just so people can make an informed buying decision. We generally do that with all our games. But yeah, it's you never really know until you push it out the door, like what people are going to think, because you've been looking at it through rose-tinted glasses in kind of a bubble for 2+ years. So
Sure.
yeah, the preview beat was a very anxious time. Just waiting to see what people thought. We had a little bit of a inkling that we might have. I mean, before that, but we had a little bit of an inkling people might click with this. We had a small in-studio event with select press and creators. It was quite a small affair, and I ended up missing it just because of family things. But the rest of the team hosted it, and it went really well, and we got a lot of positive feedback from Synapse. So even before the preview beat, we were quietly confident, but you never know.
Yeah, because obviously we were all playing it, and I was saying to these two, I really hope it reviews well, because surely it's going to. I think it's a fantastic game. I think I said when we on our review earlier in what's going to be this episode, I think it's actually my favourite game on the headset now. I just love everything it does. I was like, oh, please don't let me be the only one that thinks this.
Yeah, because you never really know until those reviews start hitting and the wider press start talking about it. I thought the fact that I was listening to Kind of Funny's PS I Love You XOXO podcast and hearing Greg Miller talk about it, I was like, that's pretty cool. He's played it. And they're not really giving much coverage to PSVR2, so you know that it's a special game when they do talk about it. So yeah, that was
that was one of the things
touch.
that actually made me not the rest of the team, but actually made me a little bit nervous. Was one of the announcement trailer for Synapse. I think Kind of Funny co-streamed the PlayStation State of Play that it was in, and they didn't seem impressed with any VR games, and I was like, oh no.
What have we done? Yeah, should have got us to host it.
We're always impressed.
But I see, speaking of Greg Miller, I can see, because he's obviously famously a huge Metal Gear Solid fan, and to me, when I played it, it really felt like something. The plot of this game felt like it could be something out of a Metal Gear game, and obviously you've got the two voice actor leads from the game. The whole kind of, you've got this kind of kernel, all this kind of radio chatter that goes on. It's very like being over a codec, and obviously being in a PlayStation exclusive, it does feel like it's really is a was that a conscious design choice by the team to lean into that, and was it influenced by being a PlayStation exclusive?
Not specifically. I I think there was a lot of maybe happy accidents. I mean, we're quite big Metal Gear fans. I mean, we've worked with David once before. He was the big bad of Phantom Covert Ops, which was Quest and Rift exclusive that we worked on. But no, despite having two of the most pivotal voice actors from that series, it was more influenced by cinema, I want to say, more than anything. I mean, I know David in a couple of interviews has said that his character, so the Colonel, he saw the Colonel as a kind of slightly broken big boss towards his later years, and I think just incidentally brought a little bit of that and a little bit of Snake to the table just as a result. But yeah, I think he definitely approached it that way. I mean, both David and Jennifer were character references, them as people were character references for the Handler and the Colonel when we first started exploring the script and the characters and the story we wanted to tell. So just having them say yes was kind of amazing. I mean, David we'd worked with before, but Jennifer we'd not worked on anything with her before previously. But no, the game was more influenced by the work of Christopher Nolan. I remember from a really early game design doc when we were just ideating the idea of Synapse. It wasn't a narrative influence, but game feel wise, one of the things that I can remember seeing written was we want the player to feel like John Wick with the Force, and I think that's something nDreams is kind of known for, having that just nailing a gameplay element that feels really good. That was the grabbable cover in Fract, which returns in Synapse in a slightly evolved form. But yeah, for Synapse, it's dual wielding, gunplay with telekinesis action. But yeah, it was definitely more films than other games, I'd say.
I think when we reviewed it, I mentioned it. This feels like that bit in the Matrix at the end of it, where Neo kind of has that revelation and realizes he's got the power to just stop bullets, and it feels like that, where you can stop grenades and not only that, but launch them back again. So yeah, I definitely can see that cinematic influence there.
Yeah, I think Matrix was in there as well. I remember seeing images of that in an early deck as well.
But yeah, I like that John Wick mixed with the Force. That is great. And I've seen reviews of it saying this is the best kind of Star Wars Force power in anything, even Star Wars games. This is the best use of the Force. So yeah, they absolutely nailed that.
There's nothing quite just holding them up there in that chokehold, and you're like,
I know.
It's yeah.
It makes you sound like a completely mad, sadistic bastard when you say this to people, but it's just it does feel so good. It's so satisfying just to launch someone off a cliff and stuff.
Juggling them, yay, up you go. Oh, yeah. A lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's obviously the game. It's got that story, kind of a focused type story. You kind of it alludes to all these kind of wider events going on in the real world and that wider backstory and context. Do you think the team will ever go back and explore that in any other games or any other way?
So I think for Synapse, I mean, first off, I don't think I'm allowed to play favourites, but I think it might be the best nDreams project. For me, it might be my personal favourite. I mean, the story itself was written by an American novelist named Stephen Kent. He's an ex-games journalist as well, so in him we kind of had the best of both worlds, where his stuff kind of leans militaristic sci-fi. So we kind of had the best in both worlds. That we had someone that knew the subject matter of military, being a special ops person, hacking into someone's mind, but he also understood the medium as well. So I think that's why it was kind of the perfect fit for Synapse, really. There was some additional writing work done by Nathan Baisley, who's the game director on our next game, Ghostbusters Rise of the Ghost Lord, and is a really talented writer as well. But I think we've created something really cool with the world of Synapse, something that has its own identity. I'd love for us to explore it more. I know at the moment and sort of previously we've been focused on getting the game launch ready, meeting player expectations and all the hype there's been, because my god, there's been a lot. So post launch or even looking further down the line in terms of sequelization or something hasn't really been a priority. But I mean, I'd personally love to see us expand on it a little bit more.
I think we all would. In terms of sort of the gameplay mechanics, then obviously when I reviewed it, I said the gunplay I found the best in kind of VR that I've experienced in terms of how satisfying it is. It seems to give you just enough of a helping hand to make it feel really satisfying without being too challenging. And obviously the telekinesis power, that's the real standout, which everyone is saying, oh, you have to play it for this. And what was that process like, creating that telekinesis mechanic, and how difficult was that, and how many iterations did it go through to get it just right?
Yeah, I think it was quite iterative. Obviously, when we got the opportunity to work on something that was purpose-built for next-gen hardware, especially next-gen hardware that has features that not a lot / any consumer headset has, like eye tracking. It was kind of a challenge that we were quite happy to take on. But because of that, it was quite iterative. Like, generally, so far, there's a few games that obviously stand out, but outside of maybe like using your eyes to navigate like menus, there's not been a whole lot of like in-game mechanics that really leverage that eye tracking. So yeah, I think at first we didn't tie telekinesis and eye tracking together. It was just done how you would expect it. You just point with your hand and grab and throw. But yeah, I'm not even exactly sure. I think it's like one of those things that's lost to time, where someone was like, why don't we just try tying these two systems together? And it was kind of a like eureka moment where it almost worked too well, and it was like, is this
It's
like,
easy now.
it's intuitive, but are people gonna get this? Because like typically, if you're like, I know when I first played it, like behind the scenes, like maybe a year and a half ago, running down this walkway, went to grab something just with my offhand without even looking at it, because I was looking at the enemy in front of me, and I was like, oh yeah, I've got to look at the thing. But the more people we got in to playtest it and like refined and retooled it after that, it's probably one of the standout things that the game has. And it is really intuitive and impressive, in my opinion.
It must be so nice seeing people getting their hands on it as well, and seeing, like, for us, that was like the massive aha moment as well. Like when I first played the demo, and then I just know, oh my god, I'm just looking at these boxes, and I just stood there for a couple of minutes just looking and going, oh yep, I can choose that, and then when you just grab stuff and throw it around and catch it, that's the moment where I think if people play this game, get to that point, it's like, okay, this is different from anything else, and that's all been empowered by PSVR2, right, and being able to actually use that technology, which is very cool.
It does really feel to me like a real step forward in that interface interactivity, where rather than having to point to like reticule or something and pick it and like press A to pick stuff up, you're just going to look at what it is you want to interact with, and that's just so intuitive. And I'm sure that's going to become more and more of a thing that we see other developers just adopting as standard now.
It would make point and click games a lot less boring, wouldn't it?
Look and click.
Exactly.
I think
About to see a
even on
resurgence
that,
of those.
but even on that mechanic, I think almost the biggest compliment you can place it is you don't even realise you're doing it. Like,
No.
It's that way. It is so intuitive that you're in the zone and you're like, right, go, and you're not even realising you're focusing on the item. You're just aware of what's around you, and it's so seamless.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was, but there was someone that played it at preview. I think it might have been someone that came into the office for the Behind Closed Doors event. But I have a loose memory of someone saying it was 10 minutes before, because they'd blown past like all the tutorial panels that explain like telekinesis and just like, press R2 to fire. The kind of people that just go, I don't need to read that, I know what I'm doing. He said it was like 10 minutes before he realised that it was using eye tracking, because it just made sense. Like it didn't need that tutorial panel that explained like how eye tracking worked. It was just using it. I think that's the best compliment you can get, really. It
is. Yeah, intuitive.
And just on the graphics in the game, because obviously it looks fantastic. And we had just a question from our Discord from Phil too. We've got a lot of Phils in our Discord group. Phil too asks, it seems harder to have a unique visual style for all the different games that are out there now, but you guys did it with Synapse. What was the inspiration for, or where did that such a cool art style come from? What inspired that?
So I spoke with Alina, who's our art director on the game, and she's brilliant. But she was saying that quite early on, it was kind of decided that we didn't really want to actively pull from other games as inspiration. Like, oh, we want this to look a little bit like, I don't know, Time Splittered with a little bit of something else. They look more towards like fashion and materials and like architecture and like textures and how and like feeling. Hard to describe. I'm not an artist. But yeah, it was more like real world organic inspirations, like fashion and textiles and things. But yeah, it was something that we were quite passionate about early on in terms of like having its own visual identity, because it's kind of hard sometimes, not even just by necessity, it's quite hard sometimes to stand out when everyone's striving for realism. And I'm going to butcher the anecdote, but someone told me in the studio there's something about memory and how you recall things in black and white. It's never colour. I'm butchering that anecdote, but
sounds accurate.
Sounds right.
Yeah, I'll use that.
Yeah, no,
So
it was theory that dreams are in black and white. That is a thing. Don't worry.
Yeah, I thought so. But no, we decided quite early on that it needed a game. It needed its own identity, and it made sense with that sort of monochrome grayscale going into someone's mind. Kind of like, even though it wasn't an inspiration, kind of like the Upside Down in Stranger Things. Like immediately when you go into the Colonel's mind, you know, just from like the visuals, it's dangerous. You probably shouldn't be there. Just the contrast, which is why the game opens. You've seen in one of the recent trailers why the game opens in full color, but you're not there long, and it's like a really stark contrast as soon as you're in, like it switches.
Yeah.
Just on that, like the whole sort of production cycle and the ideation phase you mentioned earlier. Obviously, your role as community manager, are you sort of locked in from day one and already thinking ahead? Right, how are we going to promote this? What's our angle? What's your sort of role in that whole before it even comes out phase?
So when we were a smaller team, so I started at nDreams probably like 2 years ago now, maybe a little longer, 2.5 years ago, and we were a studio of about 80 people. So I was involved in conversations slightly earlier than I am now, because there's a lot more levels that I don't need to be. There's I think at the last count we're about 230 people now across 4 studios. Wow. So it's been quite a glow up in 2 years. But no, generally for a community manager, you wouldn't be on the title, I don't think, any earlier than maybe a year before launch.
Right.
But generally, because community and comms sits within the brand team, which obviously build the marketing campaign behind the game, I generally overhear conversations, or I'm included in conversations maybe earlier than I would be in other studios, just because it's quite a collaborative effort. So yeah, I'd say probably earlier than I would be in some other studios where you can be quite siloed. But even though we're the size we are, it's still quite an indie feeling, like everyone chip in ideas, even down to like what the game's called. Like we've got kind of a tradition at nDreams where anyone can suggest a name for a project internally before they're announced publicly. Everything has a code name, but once we get to the point where we start actively planning the marketing beats, we kind of open that up to the company and go, suggest some names.
That's cool.
I'm
very cool.
Very pleased to say that mine got to the last round. It was the name that wasn't chosen.
Close.
That's pretty good. Are you allowed to tell us what it is?
I don't see why not. We chose the right name. I don't think mine was better than Synapse. It was Abstraction.
That's pretty cool.
A cool name. Yeah,
that is pretty cool. Yeah, I like that.
So, as a community manager,
everyone pronounces it the same as well. That's Abstraction.
Yeah. Easy name. So as a community manager, when you're working on these VR titles, do you find it's quite not an easy job, but because I don't know, it reminds me of like when I had a Vita and the community for that. It's such a kind of passionate niche, which is kind of like what VR is. It's a really passionate niche. Does that make your job really fun, that you can work with people that generally are really into what it is that you're doing?
Yeah, generally, yeah. I mean, we have, although it is still a niche, I mean, the VR audience, even since I started at nDreams, is way bigger than it was.
Yeah.
And is getting bigger every day. But yeah, I think it's quite nice and doesn't I mean, you'll get it in some circles, but it doesn't lean towards like toxicity as much as you think
Yeah.
games audiences would, because we're all kind of wanting VR as a medium to do well. So there's not really any point pulling each other down over like my game's better than your game. It's no, it's really nice to actually market to a VR audience because generally we all just want cool stuff and we all want the cool stuff to do well.